Hi everyone, welcome. This is a session I have been waiting to host for a while because as International Women's Day is around the corner and I wanted to create a conversation with women in communication from all over the world with different perspectives, different journeys, but with all something in common like resilience, impact and ability to shape the room they are in. So, today we are going to have a conversation about leadership in communication, what it actually looks like, how it's involved, and sometimes what it costs. So, I'm joined today by three people that I will introduce. We have ADJ, Leah, and Antoinette. Hopefully, she will be able to join us in a few minutes. And before we dive in, I will let each of you introduce yourself.
So my name is ADJ. It's pronounced like you're saying A, letter A, day of the week, and J. So ADJ, Omude. I am originally Nigerian, but I've lived in the UK for the past 12 years now, and I'm also UK. So I call myself Nigerian British to some extent. I have worked in marketing for the past 14 years, but very recently decided to make the move to internal communication. So at the moment, I work in internal and external communications with Alliance partners. That's me in a nutshell.
I'm Leah Durgachev. Aside from founding the Marcom Grind, I actually also founded a marketing communications firm that not only specializes in helping with marketing and comms, but we also are an AI coaching studio. So I work with teams to help coach other departments and marketing and comms professionals on how to utilize AI. And that might be from workflows, figuring out how to do more with less, or being more efficient in their day-to-day jobs.
So my name is Antoinette Jan. I'm joining you from Ghana. I am a communications consultant, and these days I'm focusing on communications audit and working a lot more also in that area. I focus also on internal communications as well. I'm a career coach. I'm an author and a founder of a youth-focused NGO. So that's a little bit about myself. I've been working in the field of communications for about 10 years in international development, the UN system, and other NGOs as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Antoinette. And I'm gonna start with you, Antoinette, because we are gonna talk about leading through influence. So, Antoinette, can you take us back to a moment when you realized you were already leading, even before you had this official recognition, official title?
All right, thank you. I've always been in leadership one way or the other, whether I have an official title or not, because I'm generally a proactive person, someone who likes to do things before they are told, etc. So this particular scenario is one of those highlights of my career journey. When I went to support a different country in West Africa, I can say the country, which is Sierra Leone, with change management, dealing with internal communications. And at that moment, there was a core leadership team that was working on the project, trying to do the change management restructuring. There was also going to be layoffs. They were changing the organogram. And the interesting part of this whole story is that in the new organogram that they were going to put up, there was no communication role, because somehow they had convinced themselves that they didn't need communication. Communication wasn't that relevant because they were going to run a lean system and they didn't have enough resources to be able to undertake such. And I knew this. And when I went in, I didn't want to go and argue with anybody to say, can you put communications on the organogram because this is so important? I was rather using storytelling because I had understood the strategy they had, what they wanted to do, what their mission vision was at the time. And I was using storytelling through internal communications, newsletters, to get staff to be on board with the new journey they were going on, the direction, etc. And so soon enough, the original team recognized that, oh, we actually do need communications in this new journey that we are going to undertake, because how are we going to get buy-in? How are we going to get employees to build trust? How are we going to get employees to engage? Because they are the ones we are doing this journey with. So how do we get them? How do we even build a culture around this new thing that we are doing? Even this new culture, how do we communicate it? So suddenly they realize that, oh, communication is such a core component, and how did we in our wildest dream even imagine that we could come this far without communication? So even though I wasn't particularly in the management team, but I was able to work with a team such that I just had a power issue. I was able to work with a team such that we were able to engage and get leadership buy-in to bring communications on the organogram.
I think it's a great example also about resilience. So that's why I would like to ask, has anyone has this kind of realization, like when you look around and thought, wait, I'm already the one who is driving this, I'm already leading. ADJ, Leah, do you have some example to share?
Yeah, I'm happy to chime in here. For me, and I've helped lead comms on like the whole internal and external perspective too, but for this particular example, I would say when I was at one point in time, I was leading just comms and reputation management. And for anybody on the call, that is a very kind of gruesome role just to be in that. And I remember that I was in New York and we were meeting with a client, and I was working for a firm, again, that just does reputational management. And we were talking through some scenarios. And I remember that the firm that I worked for, my boss had stepped out for a moment. And the founder of this company kept talking about some of the challenges they were going through. And then I think I'd been working there for maybe 8 months. And then they turn to me and they say, okay, so what do we do? And I was like, okay, did we have to talk about that right when my boss is out? But I'm thinking, I've been in these meetings, I've been leading our calls. So I'm like, I actually know what to do, but I've just been so used to having my boss at the time lead these conversations or even say what the answer is. But I had I've had a career in marketing comms and PR. I just wasn't in this particular role. That's all I did before. And so I just think by default, I was expecting that my boss would answer or that they would value their response. And I feel like that's the tricky part of comms too, where that is the default. But we as communicators, we shape CEO messages. We talk about how the company should show up internally and externally. We advise on timing and tone. That right there is leadership. And just because I think a lot of people and a lot of you all might probably agree is that a lot of the work that we do can be invisible, especially when it's done well. You don't necessarily always see that. And so nobody necessarily calls it leadership. So you just keep going about your day doing what you need to do until someone kind of panics and like, oh my gosh, okay, this is happening. What do we do? And then they realize all along in this instance, like me and my team, but communications broadly is that safety net. So I would say a lot of times people and communicators, like we are leading, we might not always have the exact title that aligns with the work that we're doing, but in that moment, I knew I was already driving our meetings. I knew the risks for this particular client. So I actually was completely informed to answer the question. I just didn't realize that I should even be the right person to answer at that time. So that was just this wake up call for me too, that I'm right where I need to be. I knew what to do, even when someone who was more senior than me at the time wasn't physically in the room with me anymore.
I like this example. It shows that you took the lead, you took the opportunity because you knew that you could provide something insightful to the room. So it really shows how leadership, without having this title or position, is something that bigger than that. So that's why, back to Antoinette, I would like to ask you, how did you build influence without relying on hierarchy or positional powers? How did you build through your career?
Okay. So the truth of the matter is this, that we are always influencing one way or the other. And when it comes to leadership, people can have a title and may not have may not have the influence. People don't follow their directives. And people may also not have any kind of title, but they are able to influence. So for me, what I've always been able to do is to take the lead on project initiatives without relying on directions. I've always made sure that I bring innovation whenever I have to do something, learn as much as possible in the new areas that I have, emerging areas, trends, conferences, things that I need to be involved in so that I understand the terrain. So that is what I have done in the past to be able to build influence, whether it's with colleagues who are supposed to come on board with a new initiative, a project, change management, or young people that I work with, or with leadership teams, understanding what the strategy is and working with them in such areas.
Yes, agree with your perspective. And I think once influence becomes visible, everything changes around us. And that's why, ADJ, I would like to ask you, how did you build your influence without having this title? And how did you show up as a leader? Do you have any example to share?
I would say a lot of times we believe that influence has to be loud. You have to be in front to influence people to follow you. But sometimes you can actually influence quietly. I'm laughing because that word means something else to me. But you can influence basically from behind. So it's all about mobilizing people, getting people behind whatever it is you're trying to initiate. So you don't need a title to do that. You definitely just need to understand the people that you're working with and be able to work with them to help them understand where you're going to. So it's something I have done most of my career because, as I mentioned, most of my career I've been in brand marketing, and as a brand manager you are the CEO of your brand. So although you are the most junior person on the team, you own the brand. So everything that has to do with the brand is, so I've had to pull resources from supply chain, finance, all of that. But I think, like Antoinette said, it's all about storytelling. If you're able to tell people the story behind what it is you're asking them to do, why are they doing the thing that you want them to do, if you're able to get them to buy into that from the very beginning, it makes it a lot easier for them to follow you, for them to do what it is you want them to do. So for me, how I've done that is, first of all, understand for myself what it is I'm trying to do. Because if you don't believe what you're trying to share as well, it will show. People will know that you don't believe it. So for me, first of all, is that competence. Make sure you yourself understand what it is you're trying to do, and then project that competence to people by telling them what it means for them. And then it's easier for them to actually follow you or get behind the initiative you're trying to send across. So yeah, I'll say those two things. Be competent first. It's very easy for people to follow people that they believe are going somewhere and they want to follow them to that place. So I'd say that competence, and then the ability to connect with people is another one.
Yes, what you say resonates with what a leader told me one day. If you don't trust in yourself, no one else will do. So even if
Yeah.
it's not easy, I think it's the first step. So before we move to the next topic, I would like to ask the three of you quickly, when you became more visible, when you get this confidence and this trust to yourself, what changed in how people interacted with you? Did you see some changes? Did you see that people were more keen to communicate with you, to ask you for insight, tips? Did you see something different in the room? Let's go with Leah.
Yeah, I guess I would say that for me, and when I got to a point where I was comfortable and confidently building influence, people just relied on me more, right? They were like, wow, okay, her perspective matters in the end result of a campaign or whatever it is. We actually now are at a better place because we had that comms lens. So for me, I have found that people are well more open to engaging with myself or someone in the comms field when they understood the influence that our function could have on whatever department, whatever project that someone was working on.
Awesome. Antoinette, do you have something to share?
Yes, what I would say then is I realize that you get more invited to rooms that matter because people want to hear your voice and your opinion on issues. Colleagues also contact you a bit more on issues, and the leadership also listen. But one of the things that also shifted was that then you have the leadership on your side, because it is golden to have the leadership team be on your side, understanding where you want to go. And then also, it means that now you have their buy-in. So they get along with you and your work becomes a lot more easier. So that is the change that I saw.
Awesome.
Yeah.
AJ, last word.
I'll echo what the both of them have said, but I would sum it up in one word. You just get that trust. You get trust. People trust you a bit more. People trust your opinion, trust your guidance. You get to that position where you can actually be an advisor and people actually take what it is you're saying. So I'll sum it up as people trust you a lot more.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is a perfect bridge to go to our next topic. You say, ADJ, that influence grows with confidence, which I strongly agree. But we also know that sometimes it also comes from discomfort, doubt, and sometimes failure. So I would like if you can share a moment where doubt, failure actually shaped how you are today and the leaders that you have.
Yeah, we don't talk about it enough. I think the conversation around failure leading to you becoming a more resilient and stronger leader is becoming more prevalent in these times. It's becoming more prevalent, but still, we're not talking about it enough. So I'd say for me, in the past 2 years, I've done a lot of reflection just to understand myself a little bit more, and that helps me become a better leader. And I'll point out 3 times when I have failed and what it has done, what has happened as a result of it. So the first one was in secondary school. So in Nigeria, we have a rule: if you don't pass mathematics, you fail. Even if you do all the other subjects and you fail maths, you fail. You have to stay back in a class and do it again. Basically, yeah, okay, I can't say any of the years now because it will be different for different countries. But in one of my senior secondary school years, I actually failed maths and I had to do a class again. If you've ever been in a class with other people, it means you're younger, people that were younger than you are now in the same class as you. It can be very demoralizing. It can mess with your head, basically. And still, I didn't know the maths. Initially, I wanted to run away from it. I was going to change school, everything. But then I think I was having a conversation with a friend, and my mom overheard that conversation. And she heard me saying, "Oh, not a problem. I'll just move school." And she said, "Oh, okay. That's what you think." And she says, "You're going to go back. You're going to go and sit in that class with those children and sort yourself out." And I can tell you, I had been trying to learn maths in the past year. It took me a couple of weeks. I sat down with that textbook and I learned it. And the beauty of overcoming a failure is it teaches you that you're more resilient than you believe. So although you've done that one thing, it has unlocked one thing, but it unlocks so many other things. And I went back to that class. I sat with my younger colleagues and I became the best student in the entire school until I left. This was me, somebody that probably was not known, but because of that setback, it propelled me forward until I left the school. I was the best performing student. Second one was in university. I don't know what happened. I fell in love and I completely forgot about my school. And when I was almost graduating, I saw that again, my studies had gone really down and I really wanted to graduate with as a minimum 2-1. And I saw that if I didn't do something, I would actually graduate with a 2-2. And that was not in the cards for me at all. Again, similar to that one, I put my head down for the last 2 semesters, and I actually got a CGPA of what they call it, of the first class in the last 2 semesters, which actually took me to where I wanted to be at the end of the day. So again, it's just that thing that makes you feel like when you feel like you've gotten a setback, it all depends on how you react to it. It's your reaction that makes you either become a failure or let things go. But setbacks sometimes can be eye-opening and a way to push you forward. And the most recent one, which some of you would know about, basically, is me realizing that marketing was not really where I wanted to be again. And I didn't know where exactly I wanted to be. I just knew I didn't want to be here, but I didn't know where I wanted to go. And naturally, you start to feel like I have wasted my entire time. So 14 years I have been in this profession, and now I'm throwing it all away, all the things you tell yourself. But again, similar to all the other times, I just put my head down and decided, okay, where is it that I could go? I think that was where I landed. Where could I go where I can actually utilize my skills and whatever it is that comes naturally for me? And again, it ended up being good. But why I call those three things is because every setback you have makes you stronger the next time you go. And the next time you find yourself in another setback, you're able to look back and see how you managed the previous one and tell yourself, if I could do that one, I can do this one. If I could do that one, I can do this one, that kind of thing. So I just feel if you're going to do anything good in life, you will fail. And I think it's something that I'm coming to appreciate now in life, that failure is not the problem. The problem is when you give up because you have failed. Yeah, so that is my bit, basically, that failure can actually be what propels you to become much stronger. It all depends on how you see the failure and what you do after you have failed.
Yes, I love this line of you. You fail when you give up. Absolutely. Leah, do you have a similar moment that you would like to share with us?
Yeah, and I will say similarly, my career is based in marketing and comms. I still do both, but I actually think, AJ, to your point too, having that lens of both has been really helpful. I know for me, I'm sure you'll start seeing it or have seen it too. For me, I'd say early in my career, I was so like obsessed with making sure people knew that I was always like the right person for the role, and I always wanted to show up well and prepared. So I used to over prepare. If I knew that I was coming to a meeting, yes, I would do some research and had some notes, but I would have, for everything that I want to say, I would have a individual page for each like bullet point of data points to support it. If anyone pushes back, what I could possibly say, exactly how I got to that conclusion. And so when I was in meetings, sometimes I would actually end up explaining so much instead of just getting to the root of the point of what I was trying to say. And I'm very lucky that I have had great bosses, great mentors. And so my boss had said, you have such great insights, but don't feel that you always need to over explain everything. And there's some saying, at least I'm based in the US, that goes, you don't have to explain how the clock was made, just tell them like what time it is, something about that. And so I was the one who would tell you what time it is, but I would tell you how that clock was made, like when it was manufactured, like how long, if there's a warranty, all the stuff. And I'm like, I could feel that I was saying a lot and it might not have been necessary. And so for me, I guess maybe it was more of like doubt than actual failure, but I then was like, okay, when my boss pulled me aside one day, and I'm so thankful that she did that, because I was like, you're right. I have all this information. Sure, I can use it if needed, but sometimes I was a succinct enough communicator that what I said would make sense. And if someone did have questions, I then have research data points to help answer questions, to help support what I said. But more times than not, I didn't even need all that information. And so it also taught me to be more of even more of a concise communicator, just to say the damn thing, just say it, be done with it, that's it. I don't need to go into all of this back and forth. That actually helped me and propelled me forward in my career, just because I was then invited to even more meetings and people understood, again, the value that I could bring to their meeting.
Yeah, absolutely. Antoinette, I would love to hear your voice, your experience as well. I'm pretty sure you have been through difficult time in your career as a leader, and I would like to know if you have the possibility today to tell the earlier version of yourself in that moment, what will you say? Because when we are younger and when we are living the moment, we have the tendency to think that it's the end of the world. So if you could talk to the earlier version of yourself during this difficult moment, what would you say?
It's true that I've had some difficulty in the past and all that. But one of the things, in fact, this is a hilarious story because it was one of the early days. I had gone into a new role. I was very enthusiastic about this new role. And then we were supposed to print brochures. And I had gone through the manual and thought I had understood. Then instead of printing in one color, I went to print in about 3 or 4 colors because I had seen different sector areas where they had used different colors to assign those particular sectors. So then one of the leaders came and said, you just printed in our competitors' color. And this was a lot, like maybe about 100 or 200 copies of a brochure that we had made. And I felt so bad. It was one of those early days. But what that did for me was to make me learn so much about brand identity. And so now I'm like, nobody can tell me anything about branding or anything like that because I know. So my younger self is what I would say is that it's always a learning curve. It's always a learning process, and it's not the end of the world. If there is one mistake, you can ride on it and become better.
Yeah, absolutely. And ADJ, same for you. I'm curious to know if you could say in one line quickly what you would say to your younger self during this difficult moment. What would you say for her to not give up and to keep going, keep pushing?
I think it's similar to what you said in terms of it's not the end of the world. Because I think whenever we are in the thick of it, we feel like, oh my God, this is it. There's nowhere to go from here. But if you have it at the back of your mind that it's not the end, this is just a moment in time, I will be fine. So if I could go back to all those times, basically, when I had faced those failures, that's what I'll say to myself. It's not the end. This is a blip in your life. You will do great. Just keep going and keep moving. It's not the end.
Yeah, absolutely agree. So thank you, AJ, for all your insight. And I would like to go a little bit further with you, Leah. And I would like to talk about having influence and what does that look for you from your perspective?
Yeah. So I would say that influence is typically something that you can't really like physically see, and it's not necessarily like something that's tangible. But for myself, and I would say other communicators, we have been in rooms where we are invited to provide our perspectives. Maybe we say, hey, here's like a framework that I use. And so I would say when someone actually finds you influential, it's when they are using your insights, your frameworks, your point of view when you're not necessarily in that meeting anymore. Or they might have another meeting and they're thinking, oh, okay, what Leah said or what my comms person said, I'm going to actually implement that. I would say even when we're brought into conversations. Like for me, I work with a lot of founders and CEOs and leadership. So when they are bringing me into the conversation before they even have a announcement to make, or if they're still just thinking through things, like that to me is proof of influence. I would say also that, again, you don't necessarily always have to be in these rooms, but knowing that your point of view is something that they value. And so when I work with these lean teams and founders, and I can, it's hard to like actually measure, but I'd say what signifies that my influence has mattered to them is when they're not necessarily, oh, Leah said we should do XYZ. They're actually saying we should do this. And they're saying we should do it because it is something that I've said before, because they know that this is the right call, because obviously what I say is the right call, that my perspective then becomes their first instinct, because they know we look and weigh risks, and we think of different points of views, and we think of all the stakeholders. So we almost start like allowing them to adopt that type of learning, and inherently they become strategic in that sort of way. And so to me, that's where you can see or understand that influence is actually working, where maybe I don't have to be in every single meeting anymore, but they already know, okay, comms is going to want this, or comms is going to say we have to consider all the stakeholders here, and what is it that we're actually trying to communicate. And so that, I think, is a good indicator that our influence is working, when they can start anticipating what we would say, even if we're not necessarily in that room or on that Zoom with them.
Yes, absolutely. Antoinette, previously you explained to us how you build influence without hierarchy. So, did visibility even feel disconnected from power for you based on your experience and your journey?
Not all the time. I actually do believe that being visible is a very important component of work. It's actually something that I do preach, but it's not always the case where if you are visible, you become, say, powerful or influential. So I believe that when it comes to that, it's always about knowing, the journalist will say, knowing your beat, so that there is a match between power and then visibility, because it can often feel like it's much in that sense.
Yeah, absolutely. ADJ, you talk also earlier about setback, what those kind of experiences told you about yourself. Question also regarding this topic. Did visibility without influence ever feel like one of those moments for you?
Not necessarily, not necessarily, but I would say sometimes visibility can be a challenge when you're not ready for it. And I'll give an example. Basically, in a previous role, my my boss went on maternity leave like really quickly because she had issues basically, and I had to step into that role, but I wasn't trained to do the role basically. So I did my best, but I wasn't trained for the role basically. So having all of that visibility on me at the time when I wasn't well equipped to actually do the role ended up not being the best thing for me at the end of the day. It would have been great if I didn't have that much visibility and I just took my time to actually learn. So yeah, sometimes visibility at the wrong moment could eventually become a setback at the end of the day. So I'd say visibility is great when it is backed by competence. So you're actually projecting competence rather than just projecting for the sake of projecting.
And without feeling like you are entering the situation, I would say.
Exactly. And I think that there are loads of things you can learn if you don't have the spotlight on you as well. It's a
Yes.
lot easier to just do your thing in the background, fail silently, and then come back to it. But when there's the spotlight on you, there's almost like the thing that you have to perform to some extent. And yeah, performance and learning sometimes don't always go hand in hand. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And that's why when we're talking about the spotlight, I'm also thinking about influence. So, Leah, in a function like communication, when we know that influence are very important and are part of the core of our function, how do you measure this influence?
Yeah, so honestly, that kind of goes back to where I was saying it's hard to measure. I would say it's influence is not some metric that you can just have on some dashboard and you're like, okay, here's this number. It's a lot harder to track. And I would say it's whether people, again, come to you before a decision is made, or are they coming to you after? And if they come to you before, then I would say you have influence. But if they are coming to you after, and especially as communicators, that's typically when we then are handed some sort of task list that is like way outside of the realm of why we exist and what comms can truly do. And so I look at whether what I say, what my recommendation is. This kind of brings me back to my point earlier. Did it survive the room? Did the strategy that I presented or shared or had any play in, did that actually get implemented? Or by the time that the meeting ended, by the time people left the room, whatever, did it get watered down to the point that it's not going to be executed anymore? And so I think that if your ideas are like consistently getting diluted and not necessarily staying strong through a whole campaign or meeting, that is showing that your influence isn't necessarily where it should be. But if what you said can stay the course, if people are implementing it, then that is a signal that your visibility is matched with your authority. Like people are actually saying, okay, what she said or what he or she said matters. We're going to do that. And we respect and we appreciate what they're saying and we agree with it and we're going to move along. So it's a little bit tricky to actually put like an actual metric towards, but you can see that as people are taking what you say for face value and if they're actually implementing your suggestions and your insights.
Yes, absolutely. The whole conversation, we talk about different topics like how we earn credibility, how we survive a setback, a failure, and how we build influence. So the main things in common that I see to all of this topic is that it take a certain kind of ambition, I would say. So I want to ask the three of you my favorite question of this panel, to be honest. I would like to know from your perspective, when did you stop over-explaining in your career? Over-explaining, over-apologizing in your career? How did you feel like you are enough, you don't need to over-explain, you don't need to over-apologize because what you are doing is right and it's more than just you. How did you stop? And let's say, LJ, I see your big smile, so let's do it.
It's pretty simple. I think it's basically getting to know yourself. I think once you know yourself and you accept yourself for who you are, it's a lot easier to not look at all the other things, because people will always have opinions. People will always project things on you. Sometimes you might be the best person and people will still not like you. You can't appeal to everybody. So I would say if once I understood myself and accepted myself for who I am, it became a lot easier for me to do my thing. I've always been ambitious, but I always thought it was a dirty word. So I would never say it. I'd just be like, yeah, I want to do this. But now I own it because I know that's what I want to do. I know I have dreams, I have visions, and I'm going after it. Doesn't matter what anybody thinks or anybody says as a result of it. I just own it. I own everything that is me now. And it is so freeing, very.
And you feel better. You feel so good about yourself.
Yes, because every decision you make is yours. Every move you make is yours. Yes, you still would get advice from here, talk to people that have been ahead of you to learn or to get all of that. But at the end of the day, the decision is yours. It's not that's what I think I should be doing or that's what people say I should do. Once you're able to make decisions for yourself, it's a lot easier. Also, when you fail, it's a lot easier to accept it because it's my decision. Yes, I made a mistake, but I can move on. I think it's worse when you're doing something that somebody asked you to do, especially when you know you shouldn't be doing it. And then something goes wrong and you start beating yourself up. I knew I shouldn't have done that, all of that. Yeah. So I would say, just for me, it was knowing myself, accepting myself, just moving on, knowing that I'm not perfect. Nobody is.
Yes, I love that. It's very powerful.
I was actually nodding along because I definitely agree that knowing yourself is such a big part there. And I would say from my perspective, and again, just wearing the communicator hat, like we know the value that we bring. Like we know why we're important. We know if we're in-house, like why we got hired. Now, like owning a consultancy where I have clients, I know what working with me or my team brings to the table. And I remember that, especially when I was in-house, I used to spend so much time and energy just like justifying the function of communications. And I'm sure everyone, if you've worked in comms, like everyone on this call has been like, yes, I've definitely had to justify why I bring comms to the table. And I have the comms lens, I have a marketing lens, I have an MBA, so I have the business lens, so I can build the business case. You can prove your ROI. And there comes a time where you're like, oh my God, okay, you hired me, so just let me do it. You obviously hired me for a reason. And I just woke up one day and I was like, I'm so sick of making the argument for comms that it's not just some make things look pretty function. We're so much more than that. And I said, okay, so you know what? Why don't I prove it? And instead of just always articulating what the value of our function is, I stopped explaining it and I was like, I'm going to prove it. I'm going to show it. And so for me, that was anticipating what questions people might have and even just giving answers without those questions even being asked. And so I was constantly intentionally making sure that I was showing up with something useful, something that people wouldn't question why I'm even there. And that naturally led me to stop over explaining the function of comms and actually do that now with AI too, where it's like, people all use AI for various reasons, and there are people are still learning about AI, and there might be that case where they need that education. But instead, I'm like, hey, let's take a look at how AI helped you or helped another client or helped me. And so people get more excited about things that they can physically see, and especially when you can translate it in a way that they're like, oh yes, that's a problem we're having, or oh wow, I didn't realize you could do that. So it's stop explaining so much and start showing them instead. And I have found that has just been more better received, and then you get a better outcome on both sides from that.
Yes, and keep your sanity safe, I would say as well.
Yes.
It's a conversation that I had today with my manager as well, so it's funny that you brought it, but it's great. I would like to ask you my last question for you. What would be your advice you would like to give to a communication professional, young, junior, less junior, who are looking to build influence today with this current market, with all the challenge our function is facing? What will be your tips?
I would say stay curious just because things are changing significantly, and whatever you think today might not be the case tomorrow. So I'd say stay curious. It helps you stay on top of the trends, but it also helps you understand people. And for you to be a good communications professional, you need to understand people. You need to understand your audience. You need to know what they need, what they want. You need to know who the influencers are within the organization so that you can utilize them to move your message forward. So I'll say curiosity. If you could do if one thing, it will be curiosity. Be curious about the profession, about the people that you're trying to work with, the business. Ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask the stupid questions, because a lot of times if you have a question, somebody else has that question. So if you're asking the question, you're saving other people, you're saving them face, but also helping them to understand. And when they find out that you're the person that always asks the question, it could also be a good way to build influence, because they're like, call it a into the room because we know she would ask the tough questions, that kind of thing. So yeah, I'll take curiosity and keep asking those questions.
Yes, and challenging the statu quo as well, I
Correct.
would say. Leah?
Yeah, that was a good answer. I'm like, okay, let me think. I would say for comms folks, honestly, just get comfortable being the person who says the uncomfortable thing. That's such a big part of our role. And I also think that's really where influence lives. So if you can just get used to saying things that might not be the most comfortable for you, and that's to what AJ was saying, ask those questions, ask why. Like, why does this matter? And that might sound scary to say in a meeting, but like, why does this matter? Or you might think, oh, I should know. you're likely not the only person who's asking that. And if you need to be able to clearly answer that for your audience or whomever is that stakeholder. So just get really used to asking those uncomfortable questions, because the answer to those questions, and by you asking them, is going to give you more authority, lead to more influence, and just proof of your strategic value.
Yes, and maybe more respect from your peer as well.
Yeah.
I would add, I'm gonna be Antoinette voice, also to set boundaries and learn how to say no, just to protect yourself and also protect the function, to make sure you are not just the executive function, but also the strategic, that yes, people can come to see you for requests, but you need to know the whole pictures, not just sending a newsletter, not just sending an email, and that we are done. I think it's further than that, and having this kind of strategic mind also can help earlier, I would say. Do you have one last word for our audience?
I think, Marine, you said something that I probably want to build on in terms of the fact that as comms professionals, we are the only profession that has a view of the entire organization, of all the functions, what all the functions are doing. And I don't think we leverage that enough. I think we just sit in the corner and we're happy with the information that we have, but we can actually use that information to build our influence. We can use that information to be more powerful, for lack of a better word, within the organization, because what the other person cannot see, if you go and show them, so they don't need to ask you for you to actually share that information. So in different settings, if you can share what this other person is doing that this one doesn't have visibility to, and you're able to connect the dots within the organization, especially for the leadership team that don't always have that, they have the visibility on the commercial and the business side, but not always on the people side and all the other things. So where people lack the insights, if you're able to give them that insight, it will help build the influence, and you will start to see the benefits of being a comms professional, and it will make you a much better comms professional, because when you're getting positive reinforcement, you're actually doing more as a result of that. So I'll just say we have a lot of influence as comms professionals. Just the fact that we have that enterprise view, we just need to find a way to use that more to our advantage.
It's very interesting what you said, because I think it was Regine Nelson who posted a few months ago on her LinkedIn that communication should be the CEO of her company. And when I read that, I was like, what? And then she explained everything, like you said. We have the global picture, we have the view of what is going on, we are bridging all the story together, etc. And I think it completely makes sense. And I wish I could learn more about it earlier in my journey in comms as well. All right, Leah, last word before I wrap up.
Oh gosh, I would say you don't need permission to be strategic. That's the role, that's what we do. So just own it, do it, and everyone else will just fall in place and everything else will align with that. So don't wait for permission to be the strategic leader that this comms function is.
Yes, I like this last line. So thank you so much, Heidi, for this conversation. Thank you for all of you who attend today. Thank you again, Antoinette, Leah, and DJ. And I wish you, for European, a nice evening. For our peer in North America, a great day.
Happy International Women's Day, ladies and
Absolutely.
gentlemen.
Happy International Women's Day. Yeah.